In this episode, I'm going to show you how to use P41 to do very basic version control. This is part 2 of my Perforce series. Hey, welcome to Real-Time Workflows. I'm MX Bell. I worked on Deadpool and Wolverine, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, 1917, Hobbs and Shaw, Wheel of Time, Little Mermaid, No Time to Die, tons more. What you're going to get in the channel are my pro tips and how I use Unreal Engine to make films. So let's get started. Let's make some stuff. See you down the road. Okay, welcome back to Real-Time Workflows. Let us talk about P41, which is brand new. And I actually talked to the guys at Perforce about it earlier this week. So I've got some things to tell you. First thing we're going to do is search for P41 download. Okay, and we'll find that I've got it here. It's this local version control for artists. And okay, we're going to try P41, and you're going to download it and run it and install it and all that stuff, and then we will have it on the computer. So here it is. How this works. I already talked about depots and workspaces in the other video. P41 doesn't use depot per se. It can connect to it can connect to a P4 server, and it would then use a depot. But in the most basic rudimentary terms, what this is going to do is going to create you a workspace, which is a folder that P41 will manage, and it will watch for changes, and it will record all the changes that you make inside that folder to any file, and it will give you the chance to click version, and then it will store a snapshot of those files there and then. So let's say I'm going to start doing version control in my MX Bell Star project, which of course you can get via the link in the description, and it contains some useful bits and pieces to get you started using Unreal Engine for filmmaking. And so we're going to go create, and it's going to ask us where you want it. F Unreal Projects, and we're going to call it right, and we're not going to connect it to the P4 server. We're going to hit create workspace, and there we go. And now this has created, it has logged what's inside this this folder. We'll add our YAML file. A YAML file looks like this. There's a similar thing to this on proper P4, which is a P4 ignore. And basically what this is saying is it's going to ignore these folders from it's not going to worry about what's in those when we come to the backups, okay? Save it in the root there. And now what we can see immediately is that the three folders that I've named in here have now lost that plus. So they're no longer being considered for version control. And now what I do is we go create version. And that effectively creates a stamp at that time of this project. And it creates a version at this time and date. Now, unlike Perforce proper, where you're kind of continually creating versions and whatnot, there are some limitations here which you don't have with Perforce proper. So this can run on a single machine, which it is doing now. It is going to take up hard drive space, so just be aware that wherever you're doing this, you make sure you've got enough space. So what it's not going to do though, it's not going to integrate with Unreal Engine like we saw with Perforce proper in the last video. We're not going to be able to be using Perforce from within Unreal Engine. We're not creating dynamic change lists. We're just taking a big snapshot of everything all at once. So we're probably only going to do it once a day, maybe. And so the downsides of it are that it doesn't integrate with Unreal Engine. You can't revert, currently, you can't revert a single file to a previous version. A version in P41. So what we can't do is we can't make a bunch of changes and then commit those, make a version, and then say, oh, one of those 20 files that I just changed, I actually need to revert back to its previous version. Currently, you can't do that. You're just gonna revert everything back to the previous version. All right. So that's not necessarily a problem. You just need to bear it in mind when you're working in this. I've raised that with P4 with the guys that make the product, and I'm waiting for them to come back, and I will update you. As of now, I've not heard back from them. They're going to clarify this issue, And as it stands, there is an intention to provide integration with Unreal Engine probably in the new year, Q1 2026. So these are two things that are going to change. So it's kind of like watch this space. If you connect this to a workspace, you will then have collaboration opportunities. You know, using similar methods to what I'm going to talk about in the next videos, you will be able to work on projects together and collaborate. However, because of the limitations already discussed, if you're going to do that, I would recommend using P4 proper, P4V, which I'm going to look at in the next video. Let's say we're going to hit create. It will generate a name for you here. By default, because I am connected to a P4 server, it's jumping in and saying, do you want to connect to this? Actually, we don't for this purpose, because that's not what we're here to learn. You won't have a P4 server if you're doing it this way. You can call this whatever you want, but for our demonstration purposes, we'll just leave it as it is. So we're going to create a workspace. Okay, so now we have a workspace. We know it's called Prickle Topaz. We can show in File Explorer. So I'm going to drop in some files here. So I've created another version there, and all I've done there is added a Photoshop file. So we should name these logically, as we know from the last episode. We need to name these with some logic. So we can right click and we can rename the version. We can go added poster PSD. Right. All right. Now, actually, as we know, Salient is now known as Trenchfoot, and Trenchfoot has its own logo too. So let's make a new version. We're going to add the logo to our folder, and we're going to change this Photoshop file with the updated logo. And we also need to rename this now, alright? So because it's going to be called Trenchfoot. Trenchfoot. All right. Now we'll wait a second for this to. So we go to current changes. We can see here. So what this is doing, this is adding a Trenchfoot HD cover. It's removing, in the same way that's how Perforce works in with the main one. So moving Salient, it's adding this one, and we're also adding this this image, right? So we're gonna save that, and we'll rename this. Renamed Trenchfoot. Okay. Now, let's say actually, I do want to go back to this. We can then choose to restore this version. So we'll go save restore. Okay. And now we've come back to this now, okay? We can see in here, this is going to now return to Salient HD cover. Now, let's say I want to just not put the title in it at all. I'll keep it as Salient, but I just want to remove the title just so we've made it I mean, I'm just looking to make a change just to demonstrate the point, but like, so I'm going to hide that and hit save and come out. So that's all we've done. And now we've got this, and you see how this is branched out now? Right, so we've got this, it's split off into a Y, and now this is our version where we've renamed it Trenchfoot, and we went back a version, and then we've come out here and we've done this, which is going to be, we'll save that version, and this is going to be rename, actually it's removed title altogether. Which put removed title. Okay, so we can see how this branches and becomes, it's powerful for it's doing, but we have to remember the limitations that it has, okay? So that version is just for this, but remember that when we went back here, we lost our Trenchfoot image. We didn't just, all we wanted to do was change this, right? But because we went back a whole version, we actually lost that image. It's actually gone from here, look. Right? So, and that's because we're dealing in versions that are not individual, that not based on individual files. It's based on collections of files, and at the minute, that's how we change them. That's how we do it. So that's P41. and how to use it, and it's fine, I think, for to get used to it, and also to act as a rudimentary version control for creatives and artists. It doesn't require any maintenance. It doesn't require any I mean, P4 proper, when it's working at scale, requires a network engineers to fucking run it and stuff. Okay, so this is a simpler version that you can use. But in the next episode, I am going to show you how to set it up with a simple network. So I have it running here on my Mac Mini, as I mentioned in the previous episode. My Mac Mini is here under this monitor. That's running P4 server, and I run my P4 on this workstation then with that as its server. And in the next episode, I'm going to show you how to set that up.